But I'm very happy right now to introduce Christine Keegan. She's a storyteller, and I love storytellers. It's almost a lost art, but the Story Circle at Proctor's is certainly doing everything they can to revive it.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
I wanted to echo something that one of your previous guests said when she was talking about theater, that narrative is that same, not just in the confines of a theater, but narrative, whether it's spoken or sung, we had all of those this morning, does elicit that kind of warmth. We like to think it's not dying, it's coming back.
Well, no, and I agree with you.
It is very much a resurgence.
Yeah, I agree with you, but it's sort of like years ago, I remember when I was a small kid. Well, I was a small kid once. And I used to say to my mother, tell me a story, Mommy, tell me a story about when you were a little girl. Mm-hmm. I don't know that kids do that anymore.
I think they're entertained a lot, which is unfortunate. Yeah, they are. They're entertained a lot. Part of the reason I started telling the stories I tell stories, they're memoir. They're all personal. I do some other work, but not typically, was I realized, because I was young once too, that a great many of the things that I tell stories about may not exist anymore, and it's an opportunity for a conversation. Yeah. Like, we didn't answer the phone during dinner, and there were no answering machines, and there were no cell phones. So
when I think of what we lived through, I mean, all the things that have changed so much, you know, it's like, they don't know. I saw a movie recently where the girl gets a phone and it's got the dial, you know, like and that. She doesn't know what to do, and she's trying to punch it. It's like, kids don't know about those things. Records, we're talking records. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and on the flip side, they don't, what are they talking about?
What does that mean?
Yeah.
What on earth does that mean?
Yeah.
So it's a wonderful opportunity. It's an opportunity for me to connect with older audiences, but it's also an opportunity for a conversation with younger ones about change, because they think that this is the end of the world, everything they know, but in fact, by the time they've gone past 50 years, it will look so different.
Yeah, it will. I know that you're having well, first of all, let's talk about the two events that are coming up, where you're going to be telling us a story as well. But you have wordplay, and you also have Story Sundays, and one of them is benefiting the Animal Protective Foundation.
Which is a wonderful shelter here in Schenectady. They were nice enough to accept my offer to do a fundraiser for them. I grew up with a mother.
How could they refuse?
Well, yeah, you know, but I grew up with a mom who rescued animals before there were shelters, and so she had to deal with a local vet, and it was always kind of a trial. How do you do that? Any organization that does the kind of work that they do, I respect hugely. If you can, any organization that can give a temporary home to an animal that's not wanted in some way, and then find a way to move it on, it deserves all the help they can get. So
sometimes they only need that short respite.
Just a short respite, and that's often enough. And so we are thrilled that we're partnering with them, and we hope it will continue.
When will that event be?
October 4th at Glenn Sanders Mansion.
And Story Sundays, you have dinner too, right?
We have. It's a wonderful. It's 20 minutes of story, then there'll be an appetizer, 30 minutes of story, the entree, 40 minutes of story, and desserts. You get a full hour-and-a-half story and an amazing meal. It is not better than that.
I know, and the food is wonderful there.
Is
yeah, it's excellent. Although
I can never eat when I tell.
I know. It's whenever you're doing something else, it's your meal sets there and it gets cold, but you take it home and you warm it up and you have it afterwards.
It's wonderful.
You're going to tell us a story.
I am.
Is this with the animal?
I'm going to do the intro piece to the show.
Okay, good. I think and you're going to stand up and do it.
I'm going to stand up because I'm just not a good sitter.
Can you do it with your mic on?
Oh yeah.
Like that?
Let me just get rid of my hair. We're good.
That's all right.
Okay.
I don't know how much you're going to have to move, but I'll
not,
do this. But
not too much.
Ahead,
oh,
I'll just move this so you have it. There you go.
You let me know when you're ready.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. When I was 3 years old, I wanted a cat. I coveted people's cats. Most specifically, I coveted my mother's cat. I didn't just want the cat. I wanted the cat to love me as much as she loved my mother. Malili was having none of it. Malili was a beautiful, sleek, black and white Angora with gorgeous green eyes, shell pink inner ears, the tiniest little pink nose, and the cutest little pink tongue that stuck out at me anytime I looked in her direction. She would lie on the windowsill of our Manhattan apartment looking down over 57th Street with disdain. And if I set foot into the room and looked at her, she would swivel and hiss at me. I would sit on the end of the couch and watch my mother in her rocking chair reading a book, and every once in a while her hand would go down and languidly pet Malili. Malili would roll over on her back and wrap her paws around my mother's hand, and her purring could be heard all the way around our very tiny apartment. But if I set foot towards Malili, her head would rear up snake-like, and she would fix her eyes on me and grimace, and one more step, and one more step, and out would come the paw. And should I be foolish enough to take even one more step, out would come the claw. I begged my mother for a cat of my own, but she said, no, you are not ready. And so she decided I could learn on her knee. And so over and over and over for 3 weeks, at 3 years old, weeks are forever. I would pet my mother's knee slowly and gently, slowly and gently. And my mother periodically would, slower, darling, slower, and slowly and gently. And finally, I was sure I was ready. I lay on a red leather couch and slid myself over to right above the basket where Malili slept next to my mother, and I watched. Very slowly and very carefully, I extended my little hand until I was just above her fur, her breathing. I could feel the air move, and then I touched her belly. Oh, it was softer than I had imagined, and there was no hissing. Very carefully and very slowly, I stroked from her neck down across her belly. No hissing and no scratching. She just kept breathing, and then her little paws came around my hand. She opened her green eyes and she looked right at me, just the way she did at my mother. And then she sunk her teeth as far as she could right into the fleshy part of my hand and used her hind legs to turn my leg into toddler tartare. Ooh. 15 minutes, half an hour, and an entire roll of gauze later, I emerged from the bathroom looking very much like a little pugilist who had lost. I still wanted a cat, just not that cat.
I love that story. That is a wonderful story because I'm sure that many kids have felt that way too. So, but cats have a personality.
All their own. And many of my stories are about my doing the right thing. We're doing the wrong thing for the right reasons, doing the wrong thing altogether. I'm the most imperfect heroine in the world, and I think that's what makes the stories relatable. The end story in the show is a story of a very dramatic rescue of a dog, and it's one of my favorite stories to tell. So I hope people will come.
Are you doing all the stories for that?
I am. It's my show. Actually, it launched in Saratoga in the spring.
Okay.
And I did a fundraiser for another organization, and we'll continue doing this.
That's wonderful to use your talents.
I've been telling for 25 years, and I decided finally, I've done a lot of local shows, and I love doing them. I love doing word plays. I love doing Telebration. I do Lena's all the time. I've been to Arthur's and lots of places in Massachusetts.
You're a very good storyteller.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you very
because
much.
I was hanging on every word, and that's my measure. That's my thermometer. There,
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Am I caught into the story? And you just are so expressive doing that.
Thank you.
And are you doing Story Sundays? And what's Wordplay?
Wordplay is this terrific idea. Kate Dudding, who is, and Joe Doolittle, who are the directors of Proctor's Story Circle, came up with this marvelous idea. There's a theme. It's themed storytelling. There's usually 5 tellers. And this one is Road Not Taken, and you all have one, I guarantee you.
We all have a road.
Road Not Taken.
We sat there, and do we go this way or
and this way? And then what do you feel about that afterwards, or what happened on the road you did take? And so this promises to be a terrific first one. It's upstairs in the GE Theater. It's a great way to spend a Sunday afternoon. They run monthly through the winter, and the program is on the website. So please come.
Yes,
please come.
And I will certainly try to encourage you all by giving you that information as to what's going on. Who are some of the other storytellers that
Oh gosh, we are incredibly lucky for what people regard as the backwater, which I don't. But we have I know.
Don't stop that.
But I lived in Massachusetts for a long time, and they said, "What do you mean you're moving to upstate New York?" I said, "It's the most beautiful place in the world." And one of the reasons I moved actually was there was a teller here who people kept saying, "Get in touch with her. She does the kind of work that you do," because not many people did memoir when I started 25 years ago. And that was Marnie Gillard. Kate Dudding, of course, is an incredible storyteller.
Yeah, she's a wonderful
Marnie
person.
is terrific and a wonderful teacher as well.
Yeah.
Kate Dudding, of course, Joe Doolittle. I know Margaret French. I think is in the first word play. Siri Allison, who is also an actress, but does a lot of storytelling, and also will have Celebration at the Salem Theater this year, but she will be in word plays.
To talk about the celebration as well.
And Betty Cassidy. Don't let me go now. I'm going to.
That's right. You might forget a few, but that's okay.
Anyone I've forgotten, I love you. It's not.
This is spontaneous.
It's not your fault. It's mine entirely.
But it's important. Do you have any way of suppose I wanted to learn how to, or some a viewer wanted to learn how to story. Is there a knack, or is that? I mean, for me, I love the Down East stories. And I love them because they are the same every time they're told, and they're hilarious, and they're funny, and they've got pathos. That's a different type of storytelling. So how do you learn?
How would I learn? I can tell you how I did. There is a National Storytelling Association. There are regional storytelling associations. There's a large one in the Northeast region, Sharing the Fire, that runs a conference every year. This year it will be in Amherst. It's a good place to start. There's also the National Storytelling Festival, should you be wandering through Tennessee in October. It's 3 days of storytelling that will blow your socks off. There are open mics all over this area, and they're a very good place to get in touch with teachers who teach. Go on the website. Go on the Story Circle's website. You'll find a lot of contacts. Open mics are a really good place to start because you're absolutely right. There's so many different styles of telling.
At Arthur's.
At Arthur's. There's one on Thursday at Lena's. I'm sorry, the second Wednesday of every other month at Lena's. There's a variety. There are many of them.
Now, when you tell a story, just because I know the Down East are told the same every single time, or in their inflection. I mean, they're just wonderful. I've heard the same story by 3 or 4 different storytellers, and they're all pretty much the same. When you gave your wonderful story, will you give that exactly the same?
No, because I don't actually write them. I draw them. I have a little learning disability that makes some kinds of writing difficult, and for a long time I struggled with it. And then at some point I started to draw the stories under the advice of a woman who teaches marvelously. And so when I tell them, actually, I'm describing what I'm living in.
So,
and so
your story
I'm
might
almost
not be
invisible.
identical every time.
It's not.